It is so exciting that you guys are all here. For the people who did TED Talks before me last year, you guys started off with your family's education and your history with academia, and to put my history out there as well. I come from academic privilege. My family, you can see my dad went to West Point and then University of Arizona, where he earned his Juris Doctorate. I spent a lot of time as a kid moving around from military base to military base while he in his military service. My mom has 1,000 masters of divinity, masters of English, but then she finished with her PhD in religious studies from Emory University. My brother, he got his degree in economics, his PhD as well, from Cornell University, and you can see that the only person who doesn't have their PhD is me. But I know, I'm such a loser. But my mom was 50 when she got her PhD, so I still have some time, and I'm happy about that. But the thing about the college where I went undergrad, Reed College, probably most famous for where Steve Jobs graduated from as well. It is one where 1/3 of our graduates go on to get their PhD. So it's one that is very much emphasizing, good day, very much emphasizes this sort of academic rigor and taking it to the next level. But I say this, and then I did get my master's in English literature from Cal State LA, which was an invigorating experience, and I really appreciated it. But I say this not to be like, hey, look at my family, my academic privilege, but I want to take you back a little bit to where it all started. Because my grandfather, Borek, where the Borek name comes from, he was our first generation college student. My family immigrated from Poland in the turn of the century, and he came from a family of 7 children, dad working in a steel mine, and his mom raising 7 children, one of whom died in infancy. He was the first to go to college. He got his PhD from the University of Pittsburgh in economics, and he married my grandmother, who also had her doctorate in education from Arizona State. What he does then is, because he's the first in our generation to go to college, he sets forth the future for future Boreks. From there on out, the immigrant status of first generation college, he has changed the rest of our lives so that the rest of us are now academically privileged. And this is what I would argue is what we are trying to give to our students. We're trying to break a cycle of academic non-privilege and give them privilege at this time. So that's why I share with you my academic background. But now let's move on to what is my greatest passion right now anyway, about what's going on in our classrooms. And this is creativity and problem solving, I think, is the thing that we need to be doing in all of our lesson plans every day if possible. So this is going to transform the way our students learn. I want to take you to a movie that maybe a lot of you saw. Apollo 13, years 1995. Do we remember this? Tom Hanks is in a ship and he calls Houston and he's like, Houston, we have a problem. It's the classic line we've heard over and over again. And this next scene that comes up, is one of my favorite scenes in movie history. They come and they say, we have a problem, the oxygen tank is running low, it's all carbon dioxide. Someone brings forth a box, and they throw this box of stuff on a table, and they say, this is what the astronauts have up there. This is what we need to do. Fix it. And these guys, all white men, mind you, stand around this table and start putting things together, and the next thing you know, they've got a doorknob, they've got a remote control, they've got duct tape. It's not really what they had. But they have all this stuff, and then seconds later, well, at least in the movie, the next scene, someone walks triumphantly down the hall with this. This thing that they created with a limitation. They had a limitation. This is what they have on the ship. Now, how do we solve the problem? And they did. They solved it. From thousands of miles away, with limited resources, they come through and they create something out of nothing. And I think this is what we need to be doing in our classroom, teaching them this skill of how to take a fork and save someone's life. Or something a little less than that. So here's my goal. And I know it's lofty. I know it's big. But we're going to go with it. Because we've got to dream big, and then if we fail, then we're still good. I want 100% of my students, of our students, engaged in the classroom every single minute. Every single minute. I want 100% of our students so curious that when that bell rings, they're like, oh, darn it, I wanted to stay. And I want 100% of our students to come to school thinking, this is a sacred place. This is where my mind grows, where I get better, where I get stronger as a result of being here. And if we can create this lofty goal, well, if we get to 80%, I still think that's pretty good. But that would be the dream goal. So with that in mind, I bring up Ken Robinson, and I'm going to bring him up shortly. He has probably the most famous TED Talk, good thing, on the TED page. And if you haven't seen it, he has a couple of them. They're amazing. How schools are killing creativity, and the new paradigm in education. And if you get a chance to watch these 20-minute pieces, they will make you realize that we are killing our students. You start off creative in kindergarten, and then start to fundamentally lose that creativity as they get older. I want to bring forth, in his book, he talks about creativity, collaboration, and problem solving as the key things that we need to be teaching our students about. And since he agrees with me, I'm going to put his quote up there. Thank you, Kit. But now let's talk. You guys know I'm a drama teacher, I presume, and I get to experiment a little because of that. In drama, it becomes like a pilot program or a petri dish for creativity. I would probably call it creativity 1 on the schedule instead of drama. We do get up on stage, but it's very much a creative atmosphere for our students. And what happens, let me sort of show you what we do. On any given day, one of the first things we do is they're given a problem with limits. They have something they have to do, but they can't do everything. They have limits. They have time to collaborate together in groups of 4, and you can see that our desks are arranged in groups of 4. They perform pretty much every single day. They will perform, and then at the end of the day, they get feedback. Sometimes that's feedback from me. Sometimes that's just, or woo! And you'd be amazed at the difference of how a clap like this, they can feel that, versus the clap where everyone's like, that was amazing, that was so strong. They don't always need me. They can sometimes just feel what they're feeling and get it from that. So to give you an idea, two kind of things that we do in a day. You're a group of 4, you're going to create a 1 to 2 minute scene, beginning, middle, and end. That's classic. We need to have a beginning, middle, and end. This time, the group will be given a prop, the group will be given a costume, and the group will use 3 academic vocabulary words: vociferous, metal, and alacrity. So here's your prop, here's your costume, those are your words, go make something. You give them about 10 to 15 minutes, they come up with something, they perform it on stage, and by the end of the day you've seen 8 vastly different performances that all show how creative they are. Another one, groups of 4 will create a 1 to 2 minute scene with a clear beginning, middle, and end that shows social change, and they will use music as the background, okay? And they will perform a silent scene where no dialogue is used, only blocking. So they'll get up here, but the music tells the story, their blocking tells the story, and sometimes, every once in a while, they'll say, well, Miss Borek, do I have to follow that rule exactly? Can I say 1 word or something? And this is where we come up with, this is one of our mantras in the classroom. I will give you the rules, but you can break the rules if you have a good reason to do so. When these guys were coming up with this stuff, no one said, well, you have to follow the rules. Got to do it a certain way. No, the solution, they have to find, they have this limitation, but they are given a chance to break the rules if there's a reason. If there's a reason. And I can tell you across the board, when they do break the rules, there's a good reason. And they come up with a show that is powerful. Now how do we apply this to a normal classroom? I'm going to speak to English classrooms because that's what I know. And I hope that as we go forth, the dialogue will continue and how it works in a Spanish classroom, a French classroom, a history classroom, a math classroom, an art classroom. But I remember when I was getting my master's at Cal State LA, I had to take a 400 level, an undergrad class for my first semester because they were all out of the grad classes. And one of our books was Heart of Darkness. At this point, I'd been teaching Heart of Darkness for 5 years. I'd read this book back and forth. I had it annotated. I knew this book. And we get into the class, and I sit down, and the professor gives me a quiz. And I'm looking at it. It's straight answers, maybe 12 to 15 questions on this quiz. And I know about 8 of the questions. And I'm about to get a D or a C on a book that I know back and forth like the back of my head. But her questions, the way she read the book, and the way I read the book were totally different. It is as if she asked me, how many commas were on page 57? I'm like, I don't read how many commas were on page 57. I can tell you about the myth and the idea of feminism, and I can tell you all sorts of stuff, but I don't know how many commas were on page 57. She didn't ask that. But the things she chose out were so esoteric to me, they were so unimportant to me that I didn't memorize those. And I wasn't allowed to use my book. Had I been given a chance to look at my annotations, I could have found those answers, no problem. But that wasn't the point. Then, through the grace of God or something, she comes over, she's like, oh, you're a master's student, here, do this essay. Thank you. I can do this. There's more than one answer to this essay. I can create something here, and no one's telling me I'm right or wrong. I'm just thinking differently. And that's one of the things. We have such a diversity of knowledge. When I pass by on the 710 to the 5 each day, I see that bridge that they're building, and I see all the rebar, and I think, and I'm like, thank God they haven't asked me to make that bridge, because if I had to make that bridge, but thank God there are people who know how to make that bridge. So we need to find ways in our lessons to celebrate different ways of thinking, and not just our own way of thinking. So the words that I feel like we have been asking our students for too long to do summary. And what they need to be doing is analysis. They need to be getting the interpretations, the synthesis, the connections, and all of that. They shouldn't just be repeating what is already out there. To that point, one of the first lessons I do, whether I'm teaching 9th graders, normal 9th graders, or AP Lit students, is one of the first things we do is we look at art, because they're much less intimidated by art than they are by words at this point, especially since it's been a summer. And what we tend to do is we look at, okay, what I see in this painting versus what it means. And anyone can come and say, well, I see these trees, and I see these women, and I see this path, and I see the sky. Great. But what's the point? What does it mean? And so what we try to get them to do, and what you can see is they're so actively engaged and so excited to answer these questions, is, okay, well, you have these two symmetrical trees. Why are they there? And then you get this pattern where you get palm trees, so that breaks the pattern. Why is it breaking the pattern? And then you have all this color all around here, but then you get the brown and the whites and the neutrals in here. Why? What does that represent? And then you have these two sinusoidal paths that are reflective of water and of dirt. What is the sinusoidal? What does that represent in math? What does it represent in life? Why do I see it on so many hospital buildings, that sinusoidal curve? There are eight huts. Most of the doors are on one side, but this door and this door on the other side. Why? What does it represent? Some people are standing, some people are crouching, and them in the habit. So we need to avoid getting in the habit where they just show us what they see. Now take it further. Let's get to the analysis. Let's get to the meaning behind it. And when we get to that, that's when their minds are going boom, 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 boom. And they're excited because they could be right, they could be wrong. It doesn't matter. If they can find a way to suggest that that is true, and they can give you evidence, then we're golden. I think a lot of you know that we did the plays here for about 7 years in the cafeteria. And I want to take us back to our town, the first play we did. We were littered with every single problem you can imagine. Every single problem. The obvious stuff, no money, no stage, no costumes, no history, that stuff. But little things like the electricity in that room. Anytime you plug something in, it went out. We didn't have so many things, and what I remember students doing is coming up to me and be like, Ms. Borek, what do I do? What do I do? And I'd be like, I don't know. Just solve it. And they did. They did. And they came up with things where they were breaking the rules. No, you really probably shouldn't have unplugged the vending machine, but that was a great idea. Do that again. They're walking up and down the rafters, pulling plugs so people don't fall. Like, is that probably the right thing to do? No, but do it anyway. Just do it. Let's get this done. And it is amazing how much they came together to perform, to solve problems. And I tell you, our students are very creative. And I would say that they could even have genius in them if we let them have that genius. If we expose them and don't just give them an intelligence that is this rote, methodical intelligence that only some people do well at. I think a lot of people can be creative geniuses. And then, so, to end, we have one last metaphor. We started with a bunch of white guys in Houston, rocket scientists. And I want to bring back some other people who I think are geniuses who solved a problem the way they saw fit. The women of Gee's Bend in Alabama, they started off in the history where there was slavery, and then when slavery was abolished, there was still oppression and there was poverty. And they had a problem. They were cold. It was night, they didn't have money to get blankets, but they had a cotton mill down the way. And what they did is they got the scraps, the leftovers, the things that no one wanted anymore. And they made something beautiful out of that. The women of Gee's Bend ended up making these quilts that have influenced the likes of Picasso and Matisse and other artists around the turn of the century. Because they took these images, they took scraps, and they followed what they loved. And if you look at them, these do not follow conventional quilting terms. These lines are not straight. They are breaking the rules. They're not measuring everything out. they're using scraps. And I have to say that this is one of my favorites, that these quilts, when they're making it, despite their poverty, despite the cold, despite all of these things, I have to imagine that they were happy making it. And that's the other thing about creativity, is people are happy when they're being creative. I'm happy when I'm being creative. Hopefully you're happy when you're being creative. And so what I think we need to help our students do is the act of creation is our own divinity. It is our humanity. When we look at what we have created and we declare it is good, it is very good, this is because we have begun to be the divine person that we want to be. And so we need to establish this idea of divinity, of humanity, of creativity in our students and in ourselves, so that they can create that happy and exciting place for themselves, not just in NASA rocket scientists, but also as a thing to keep them warm at night. So that is my talk, and I'd like to thank you for being here.